Hi, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela with another video on making and playing a Native American flute. This time we're going to focus on one of my favorite old flutes, which I say old flute. You know, there's a lot more history and everything out there that you could find on your own, and I always give you guys just a little taste of it, and I know it's probably not enough. I should have my own history channel, right? But what I'm showing you today is one of the original flutes that's pre 3,800 years ago. So from about 8,000 years ago to almost about 4,000 years ago, indigenous peoples in this country made 2 or 3 different types of flutes. One of the types of flutes they made, you hold in your hands kind of like this, and you blow across it. There's a lot of old bird whistles that look like that you like that. A lot of old actual flutes. You know, most of them didn't have holes, they only had the side coverings, and you could do that. But like I say, between 8 and 4,000 years ago, people made 4-hole flutes, and they made them without this piece on top. This started about 3,500 years ago that we know of. You know, I like to put my little I believe or any of that in there. So about 3,500 years ago, we started putting this piece on top with the little flat block. A lot of you people call it a fipple. The fipple is actually this little sound edge here. All flutes have a fipple. That's what makes them make the noise. But this little block piece that directs the sound and makes it play across that hole for us, that's new. Prior to that, everything was a rim-blown flute, like a shakuhachi or a kina, or what a lot of you call the anasazi flute. All those type of flutes were rim-blown flutes, and the little modernized piece up here happened, like I say, at a time that we really were a little more comfortable. There, ice kind of receded a little bit. It was a lot warmer weather. We were growing things. It was easier to grow food, and all the, you know, everything really grew better at that time. Even the nuts and things that were already wild that we had been harvesting. You know, that kind of thing, just it grew better at that time, and we had a little bit more time on our hands. And that's when you see fish baskets really took off, and a lot of weaving took off. A lot of things really started blooming and blossoming in this north, central, and even parts of South America. Of course, they may have been a little ahead of us on a few of those things already, but we were doing good. In North America, though, this particular flute, the 4-hole flute, stayed around for another, I don't know, 12, 18, almost 2,000 years. Kind of commonly. They found some up in northern, like Ohio and into Indiana and what have you. There are examples of these guys. Of course, you all have seen my 4-hole Cherokee whistle, the one that really stood test of time and really had been played up until about 150 years ago on a common basis, you know, by lots of people. Obviously, some people still kept them around that long, otherwise I couldn't show you how to make them. But this guy, really something cool, historically very important, historically very very unique. Like I say, came around before the original 6-hole flute. Could you hand me that 6-hole flute back there? I'll show you something kind of unique about these guys, and I know I've talked about it before. One of my favorite things, though, kind of see what happened, because the 6-hole flutes really in the 5 and anything else after that started about 4,000 years ago. We were thinking to ourselves, hey, you know, what happens if we drill an extra hole? And we made an extra hole, made a 5-hole flute. We actually posted a picture on our Blue Bear Arts Facebook page of a original 5-hole flute found in Lakota country. Doesn't mean it was specifically those people. Probably, possibly, their ancestors. There's no telling who leaves any of these things behind you. Back in the old days, we really didn't segregate each other as much as we do these days, and oh, it's a such and such tribe, or oh, it's a that tribe, or this tribe did this, that, or the other. History used to be a little bit more forgiving than it is today. So later on, somebody said, hey, what happens if we drill an extra hole? So they drilled an extra hole. They made 6-hole flutes, and if you notice, these bottom holes line up. The sizes are about the same. This one's larger in diameter, that's why it's shorter, and that's what we're going to focus on this video, is how to make and tune a 4-hole flute. We'll do the 6-hole one here shortly, I promise. It'll actually come right after the release of my book, which I know all you guys are chewing your fingernails thinking, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? Well, there's always setbacks in everything in life, and as we found, there's a lot of them that really can affect you in a big way. And some of you that's been on our Facebook know what I'm talking about, but otherwise, I'm still in good spirits and still making, oh my gosh, lots of flutes. So this guy, like I say, a lot of history, a lot of significance. It's easy to play. I know I've showed you before, especially with my 4-hole whistle, the Cherokee Flute, that you can play these minor or major scale. Or you can play, like I said, the major scale like this, which is way cool. Something you can do with this guy that you do a lot easier than with any other flutes. But let's get to making this one and see how it works out. So this is the old one, which I made on a kind of a neat piece of, I think this is a piece of river cane from Oklahoma. It may be a piece of bamboo from around here, but if it is bamboo, it's a very unique piece, very nice and round, very perfect. This is a piece of river cane that, let's see, what's it called? Arunda gigantea. Anyway, the big stuff. The big river cane that we make our walking stick flutes. We make so many other flutes out of. What I've done here is I've gone ahead and made the sound area. A lot of you are going to ask me about the size of the sound area and what should it be and how long should this be. So many of those things are very versatile and variable. I'll show you a little trick, and this probably should go on a upcoming tricks video. But if you notice, the size of this sound hole is large and the size of this one is small. Typically, to make a perfect sounding flute, the sound hole size and the flute fingering size are a relative consistency. For example, if you make a flute that's a 1/2 inch in diameter, the holes tend to be between 3/16 and a 1/4 of an inch to make it sound perfectly. If you make a flute that's 3/4 of an inch in diameter, usually between 1/4 and 5/16 make it sound perfectly. And the sizes and everything, like I said, the variances are kind of important. And we'll get into that in an upcoming, like I say, video where we have time to sit down and talk about that kind of thing. This is just a video on making the 4-hole flute. I will tell you that the small 3/16 size diameter sound hole will make a better sounding small diameter 4-hole flute. It's a lot to say, a lot to soak in too, so follow me. The diameter of my material is small, and I'll get you a measurement on it in just a second, but the diameter is really small, and the smaller the diameter of the material you're making your flute out of, the smaller the sound hole needs to be. This one's larger. If you heard, it made kind of a like a warble or a skipping, maybe even an octave jump on some of the notes, and especially the lower notes. The reason it does that is because it has a larger size sound hole. It is louder for that reason, and a little bit more clear, but that side effect of having it jump is just something I'm not wanting to do in this one. So we have a smaller diameter sound hole, like I said, about 3/16. We could get an exact measurement on it, not that it's completely necessary. Let's see here, looking at about 3/16. So anyway, somewhere around 5¼ millimeters maybe. Then the size here doesn't really matter as much. I like to make them a relative size. I usually like it between 3/4 of an inch and an inch long for the track. That's just personal preference. You'll meet other flute makers that do it completely differently, that produce wonderful sounds, and they have ideas about how it does this, and I have ideas about how it does that. But the truth is, there's so many other variances in this that we do whatever it is that comes out consistently for us. So you do whatever consistently comes out for you. That's the real truth. But anyway, so we got the width of this and the length of this. Not, like I say, so important, but to make the flute we're going to make today, I made mine 3/16 wide on the sound hole. So I've already made a block for it. We're just going to clamp them down like that with my little squeezy clamp. Forgive the ugliness of my squeezy clamp. This dude here's been through a lot of stuff. It's like Franken clamp. Anyway, so we've already done that part and already drilled the holes out, which I'm going to show you now what the measurements are, and then we'll kind of go, where we need to go with that next, which is the tuning. The tuning is really the key to make a good sounding 4-hole flute and to make it play the way you need it to play and perform the way that they used to. So the next step we're going to follow, and I'm going to use my old one here for an example. I always like to fall back on the pattern. Okay, I'm going to give the measurements both in inches standard as well as in millimeters for metric. And to start with, we're going to measure, not that it's completely 100% important, but if you want to get a partially consistent, truthfully, it's not really that crucial. we're going to measure from the center of this sound hole, okay? So if you really need to figure out what it is, you can say half of 3/16, and then from half of 3/16 you can decide where your center needs to be. It's not necessary. So this ain't rocket science. The first hole is going to be at about the 5-inch mark for the first fingering. The next fingering is going to be about 6 1/8. The next one is going to be about 7 1/2. Really 7 and let's see, 1, 2, 3/8 maybe, somewhere between 3/8 and a half, you know, and certainly I could tell you what that is, but once again, I don't want you to focus on exactness. None of that really is that crucial. What's crucial is just you learn how it sounds and how to tune it. It'll come by itself. So we're looking at about 7 3/8 to 7 1/2. The next hole is going to be about 8 1/2 inches. Now going on the other side, of course, all of you know you can multiply inches by 25.4 and come out with millimeters, but I have so many people almost on a daily basis asking me, could you give me that measurement in millimeters? So having said that, starting at the center of the hole, on the metric side we're looking at about 129 millimeters for the first fingering, which is this dude right here. Then we're looking at about 157 for the next one, roughly 189 for the next one, and roughly 189. So after about 189, the last hole is going to be roughly 218 millimeters. Now, a lot of you can go back and recheck my work and say, well, the math doesn't add up. This one should be 1 millimeter that way or this. Then, you know, the ruler may have slipped. It doesn't really matter. In the old days, people didn't have these things as conveniently as we do these days with such microscopic measurements that we could really literally split hairs on this and worry about it. Anyway, so I've drilled some holes. I've drilled my holes out with a, let me see, what size is that guy? I think it's a 19/32. It's a little bit smaller than a 3/16. Doesn't really matter. We're going to burn them out to between 3/16 and a 1/4 inch, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. You know, you could use an 1/8. That might be an 1/8 that I drilled it out with, but it looks a little bit bigger than an 1/8. So drill them out with about an 1/8, and we're going to go up from there to make the size right. Once again, we talked about the length of this flute is a little bit longer right now. I'm going to probably trim it up a little bit to make it right. So let's see what it sounds like. So, sounds really good there. That's the minor pentatonic scale. That's 5 notes, all covered as one note, and then each of the other 4 fingerings are the other notes. When I play the top note, which all of you find very crucial in a pentatonic scale, even though it is a duplicate of another note, it's actually the 6th note in a 5-note scale, or the 6th representation of the 5th tone of splitting hairs here. Anyway, so it sounds really good, but what I need to do is to get it in tune, and that top note, when I cover them all again and blow fast, is not an exact match of the bottom note. So that's what we need to do, is get the top note and the bottom note to match. And the way that we're going to do that is I'm going to trim this off just a little bit so that they're a little closer, and eventually they may not be a perfect match, but it'll fool our ears and it'll sound beautiful like it always has. So the top note is, and the bottom note is a little off. I'm going to trim it right here and be right back to the camera. So, other than leaving my ruler out, I'll tell you what, this is about how much I cut off. Make sure that there's no burrs. If you notice from trimming it up, there's a couple little burrs. Those actually slow the tone down a little bit and make it a little bit lower than what it really is. You'll get it, clean it later, and think, hey, this thing went crazy sharp. Now the top note's even higher. Huh. So, let's see what we can do here. We may be coming into its peak tone, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and trim. If you notice, I think you can probably see that in the camera. that it's still about an inch too long. I'm going to trim just a little bit and see what happens. Okay, once again, still not quite the amount that we needed it to be. Oh, sounds like somebody calling. Tell you what, normally we turn that off and start making a video. Oh boy. So we've cut it off a little bit more. Let's see where we're at here. We've got about a ½ inch left over. Let's see how it sounds. I'm just going to play the two notes, bottom and top. Really close. I think I can probably sand it the rest of the way, but before we go any further, let's go ahead and start on the holes. A 4-hole flute is a very simple instrument. It is, however, a little complex for us who have become so complex in life to tune. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and burn the holes a little bit. We'll worry about the bottom note a little bit more in a second, but you'll be able to hear how it comes into its own when the bottom holes are sounding right. So all I'm doing is enlarging. I think that's a word, right? Enlarging. As a kid, I used to think it was enlargening. That don't sound right though. Anyway, yeah, Jessie's back here shaking her head. Using my good old Alabama speak. Batteries. Yeah, batteries is a real Alabama word, like guitar. Although guitar may have come from Tennessee, I'm not sure. Batteries. Boy, that top note is way out there, and let's cover it up a little bit and see what it sounds like. Nope, still kind of off. And it sounds like he's just going to go sharper and sharper. Let's see what happens. So we'll make these holes a little bit bigger. Not too much bigger. Just to show you the size though, this guy here is tight here, a little tight there. This one's a little loose. This one goes all the way through. So I think we're good. And mostly now we need to fine tune the bottom. So we burn these holes out, and I know a lot of you are thinking, well, just tell me how big they need to be. It's not like that. This is a lot of trial and error and practice. Oh my God. This is an ancient instrument here. This dude here ain't like making modern ones. They tune in 3 minutes. Not even that slow, really. Truthfully, they tune really quick. Anyway, so these dudes are about 3/16 roughly, give or take, or 5¼ millimeters, if you like. And that's just a guess, mind you. Let's see on the millimeters. Looking at it, looks like 5¼ So let's see what it sounds like, and then I'm probably going to shave some off the bottom again. Top note's still kind of jumping. Let's see. And once again, all that sanding fiber. Oh my gosh, gotta clean that stuff out. That's got it. Let's see. Okay, so we're getting kind of a unique, oops, he slid around a little bit, kind of a unique sound. And it sounds like that top note's just a little sharper than this guy. Really close though. Let's get him sanded one more time. Always clean that stuff out. So now let's compare what our sizes are. Oh, you know what? I forgot to tell you guys the inside diameter of this guy. I know a lot of you are thinking, what is wrong with you? So the inside diameter is almost perfectly 15 millimeters. which is give or take about what is a 1/16 bigger than a half? Anybody? Okay, so it's like 9/16 in diameter, give or take. Once again, so 1, 2, 3, 4 is half, and then one more is 9/16. So roughly 15 millimeters, really 14 3/4, 9/16 of an inch. This guy may be a little bit different in size, slightly smaller. This one's definitely 14 millimeters and still really close to 9/16. This is once again splitting hairs. I think my hair is probably wider than that. But let me pluck one out and see. I know the gray ones are really wide. So anyway, so this guy here, give or take about 9/16. Really a ½ inch would make a better one, I think. But the original one I copied was about 9/16. Let's see what he sounds like now. The top note just sounds really sharp. So there must be something in the track causing that to happen. Oh, I see. Here we go. I don't know if any of you can see that. And no, it wasn't planned, but it's one of the little trials and tribulations you overcome. Is there's a little gap in there. And you see that little gap, and if you look, you can see that there's a little bow back here. And if we go on this side, we have, I can take this clamp off so you can see better. We have the same gap over here and the same little bow causing it to happen. And I guarantee you that's because my Forstner bit is not taking this guy down flat. So what I'm going to do is burn the top of it really quick, and then I'm going to come right back and it'll produce the sound we're looking for. Okay, so all I've done is I've come here with my flattening tool, which is just another drill bit. It's a paddle bit that I have in some vice grips now because my handle on it's kind of bought the farm. Anyway, so I have a paddle bit that I heat up and I flatten it off. And if you noticed, it's black right here. There's a little spot that's not black, whereas this whole side here is black and down to here. The reason it's not black right there is because that's kind of a deep pit. It's where the limb was growing on this river cane. And it's not necessary to make it perfect because I have it nice and flat and black right here, you can see. So wherever it's black is where my burning tool touched it, and it helped to flatten it off some. And I can show you just by holding it here. If you look, I think you can see it. Let me see if I can hold it while you're focusing in on it. It is much flatter. It's straight across compared to what it was a moment ago. And we're talking microscopic. That's where splitting hairs really does count, but you know, you don't need to measure it. You just need to recognize it, know what's causing, you know, what the problem is, and then fix it. This side here is much flatter, much flatter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tie some leather on it and let you hear what it sounds like. Okay, so we finished the little guy up. I trimmed it off a little bit and tied the block on. You know, when I was talking about how the flatness of this area here makes such a difference, it is so important. We could probably, and probably will, do a whole one of our little quick tips videos on keeping a flute in tune by controlling the way the air travels through the channel. Once again, in the old days, and you guys will hear me say it so many times, that I think that no matter where you're from, what country or what walk of life or whatever, in a lot of ways we each agree that the old people really seemed to knew something back in the old days. They knew so much that these days we just don't know. So they used to know something that today we've lost or lost track of, and it's just a simple little idea. It's not something as complex as the flute itself. It's actually just the one little area of the flute that you really need to focus on. Well, this flute here makes a good example too, and quite possibly the reason that many people quit making these flutes, you know, it evolved itself out of creation, because getting it to play, and you can hear the top note's a little sharper than the bottom note. What it amounts to is the bottom note's a little flat and the top note's just a little sharp. They're both, if I check on my tuner, they're both really close to B, which is cool. But one's just a little sharp, one's just a little flat. The reason this is happening is because when you blow through a flute, to make it jump octave on purpose, you have to blow fast air. Fast air travels faster through the flute, and the faster the air travels, you actually change the mechanics of how the tone inside of the flute is created. So, to compare and contrast with this guy and his predecessor, the rim-blown version of the flute, which we'll make some of in some upcoming videos, but the rim-blown version of the flute that you like that, the player controlled the size of the embouchure here, the size that the air was coming out of. A larger size is better for lower notes, and a smaller size is better for higher notes. You actually have more control over the velocity of the air coming out like that. So if you learn how to play the new modern type of any of these flutes, the ones that have the blocks on them, whether it be a 5-hole, 6-hole, or whatever, or that illustrious 6-hole that you keep your finger covered for whatever crazy reason. We'll talk about that soon, I promise. But if it's a traditional 4-hole, 5-hole, or like my traditional 6-hole that you don't keep your finger covered on that hole, wink wink, if it's any of those type of flutes and you try to blow fast, the note is going to go high because it's fast air. Whereas in the old days, you could play the same flute on a rim-blown version, and you would produce a much more accurate and a more clear, and in most cases even a much louder tone with the flute, because you have control over all this mechanics of your mouth here. This was easier than it was in the old days. So I'll play it for you for just a second. And like I say, kind of a neat instrument, very unique and very beautiful sounding. And after we make 2 more videos that we're planning, well, 3 counting the release of the flute video, which we've already got everything made, we just need to release it, a release of the flute book. As soon as we make these next 2 or 3 videos, we'll start making some rim-blown flutes, which I know a lot of you are really interested in. Some of you have expressed interest in, and of course they're where all this began. So we've got a lot to cover and a lot of interesting things to do. Anyway, once again, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out for BlueBearFlutes.com, Blue Bear Arts on Facebook and here on YouTube, and please subscribe to us if you get a chance. We've got a lot of kind of neat videos to come, of course, as always, and we hope to see you again really soon. You guys take care and happy flute making.